Hello everybody, welcome back. We are in part 2 of the knife game. In this part of the video, we are going to complete the game by giving code to the throwing knives and also starting to look at the concepts of lives and how that all works, right? So remember, the knife game is a very interesting game where we have this log which goes around with a fixed knife and we must throw knives on towards it from the mouse, right? And basically when we throw 10 knives, I go to the next level, let's say, right, and I go to the next level and this time I get two fixed knives, right? And however, if I go and touch these knives, then I lose a life, and if I lose 3 lives, then the game gets over, right? For example here. So that's how the game goes. Now in our pursuit of building this, we have come to a point where we have a fixed knife going around the log, and it's moving around with the log. It gets cloned, it gets moving around with the log, right? Now so in this video we are going to continue and we are going to complete the game for the code for the throwing knife, right? Now first thing first, I will place the throwing knife in a way that it looks like it's nice underneath the log, right? So remember the log was at 0.50, so for this purpose I'll make throwing knife to appear, say, somewhere in the bottom of the screen, right? So I will say when the flag is clicked, basically when the flag is clicked, notice I'm coding for the throwing knife. So when the flag is clicked, I will say go to, let's say something like 0. Right now it's a 0 minus 80, but yeah, something like this is fine, I guess, right? So I just want to make sure of one thing, that when I have one more throwing knife here of the same size, it should not be touching the fixed knife. Now that part is important. We'll see that why that is important, and that's where when I meant to make this about 25%, that's where I was coming from, right? There's this knife sitting here, there's going to be another knife sitting up here, and these two should not be touching, right? So I just put it, say, somewhere down of the screen, bottom of the screen, so 0 minus 85. Now I'm going to use show. Now this is different from the fixed knife, because fixed knife, we had hidden the knife. We were just using cloning to create all the knives that appear. That's true for even the throwing knife. However, remember, in my game the throwing knife is always appearing here. It's like reminding the user that, okay, look, he has got this one knife to throw here. So he clicks the mouse and this knife gets thrown, right? So I want to show my knife here in the bottom, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'll say show, so the original sprite will always be here, and the clones is what will go and sit on the wheel, right? Now we'll also do, just to be sure, like we're done for the throwing knife, I'll also send this to back layer, right? Just to be sure of this. And also, in fact, to be very, very sure, I'm going to say point in direction 90. That's because I want this guy to be standing upright, right? So, and that's the only reason, right? So with this, let's say the basic setting of the throwing knives done, let's start looking at the way it gets cloned. And for that purpose, I'm going to remind you once again of the timeline that we looked at in the previous part of the video. Remember, every level the user gets to throw a certain number of knives, basically by clicking the mouse. So user clicks the mouse, knife gets cloned, and then it gets thrown upwards. Once the level changes, then we wipe the slate clean, which means we delete all these clones, and then the whole cycle starts again, right? So let's say again the user throws 10. 10 is just a number. You can do it differently, but once the user has thrown 10, again the level changes, and I'll delete all these clones and move on, right? So basically every level a new set of clones are created, and the old set of clones is deleted. I mean, this is what we are going to implement now. So the way I'm going to do that is that I'm going to say, when I receive, so notice I'm in the throwing knife, so I'll say when I receive new throwing knives, right? So I'll say when I receive new throwing knives, right? So remember, we had separated the new fixed knives, new throwing knives, just for the sake of clarity. So here, when I receive new throwing knives, now I want you to imagine a situation that, okay, the level has changed, the user has a bag, somebody magically goes and puts some number of knives inside that bag, right? So probably somebody puts 10 knives inside the bag, depending on the level. So I'm going to use a variable to keep track of that, and the variable, I will call it as knives left, right? So I'll just call it, let's say, knives left. So this variable will keep track of how many throws I'm yet to make, right? So I will say in my game, I'll say set knives left to 10, which is basically every level the user gets 10 knives to throw, but you could do it differently. You can make it level dependent. So every level, maybe first level the user gets only 1 knife, second level user gets 3 knives, 5 knives, and so on and so forth, right? But for me, it's 10 knives. Now user gets to throw exactly this many knives, which means these are the exact number of clones that we are going to create. And how I do that is using a repeat until block. So what I will do is that I will use a repeat until block here. I'll say repeat until let's say knives is equal to, so knives left is equal to 0, right? So what this means is that until you've got knives left inside your bag, please keep throwing. Right now, remember, repeat until works by saying that, okay, look, I will keep doing whatever is inside this until this condition becomes true, right? So till this condition is false, I'll keep doing this. The moment this becomes true, I will exit this loop, right? Now in this case, this is a logical condition, because all we are saying is now there are no more knives to be thrown. Knives left has become 0. So that's it. You've thrown 10 knives, and which means you must exit now, right? Now remember, I want the knife to be thrown with the click of a mouse, right? So what I can do is that I can go here and I can go and say, wait until, let's say, mouse down, right? So I go sensing and say mouse down. What this means is that, well, I'll wait till the mouse is clicked. And once the mouse is clicked, I can create this clone. So I'll say, let's say, create a clone of myself, because this is a fixed knife, so it can create a clone of itself. Very, very importantly, I must reduce the number of knives left inside the bag. So I'll say knives left, change left, my knives left -1. That's because if it was 10 knives and I create one clone, it means I've got 9 knives still left inside the bag. If I had 5 knives, I created one clone, I must have only 4 knives left. So that's the whole logic. Now I keep doing this until the knives left becomes 0, and which means this code will give me to throw exactly how many knives I have set here, right? Now this code looks innocent, this code looks correct, it's logically appealing. However, there is a mistake in this code which I'll come back to in just a moment. Just to be clear, I will do this after I've given the behavior for the for the fixed knife, for the throwing knife, right? So in other words, what I'll do is that I will basically tell now what happens when this knife starts as a clone, right? So remember, I'm creating the clone here, but then what happens when I start as a clone? So I'll say when I start as a clone, right? Now I want this guy to go to the same position as the earlier fixed knife. In fact, it's not needed because that's where the knife is. It will go there, but just to be sure, I'll say go to, let's say, x of 0, y of -85, because that's where this knife was. And now I want this to, go towards the log, right? So I want this to go very rapidly towards the log, right? Now, the first thought that comes to my mind is that I can use, like a color wheel, I can use a repeat until block again, repeat until touching the log, right? Now, the problem here is that I want it not only to go to the log, but I also want it to go in a way that its costume gets nicely aligned with the log's costume. Because remember, once it reaches the log, it's going to start turning, right? And the way it turns is because we have offset these costumes. Recall from the part 1 of the video, we have offset these costumes, and we must make sure that the costume offset relation maintains, right? Because on the other hand, when I use touching, let's say repeat until touching this, I cannot control where exactly the knife will stop, right? So sometimes you'll find that the knife doesn't rotate quite well. To avoid all that, instead I will use the glide block, right? So what I will say is I glide very rapidly to, let's say glide in, say, 0.1 seconds to maybe x of 0 and y of, let's say, 50. Right? Y of 50, because remember the log was at 0, 50, right? So I want to send it to the exact same point, and thereafter I can just ask it to rotate along with the log, and that part is simple. We have taken care from the costume. So all I have to really do is that I can say, forever, let's say, turn right by 3 degrees. Now why 3 degrees? Because that's how the log has been made to turn, right? So turn clockwise by 3 degrees. And just to make this a little bit more lively, I'll add a sound here which it's quite nice for this. It's this sound called muted conga. There you go. So I'll use this muted conga. I mean, this is just my choice. It just feels nice. So I'll say here start sound muted conga, right? So when I do this, what's going to happen is that, I'm expecting that, I'll have a knife thrown upwards. It will go to the log, it will get embedded in the log, and thereafter, because the costumes have been set in a way, it will start moving exactly along with the log, right? And we can see that. In fact, I want to show you that because I also want to illustrate to you the problem in this part of the code. I told you there's a problem, we'll fix that. So we'll see both how the clone is working, and also we'll see what's the issue with this part of the code and how do we fix that before we move forward, right? So now let's say I click, let's say, the flag. Notice I click the mouse once, but I'm getting 2 or 3 clones, right? Of course, these clones are going in there and they are just going and getting embedded to the log, but I actually tried to make only 4 throws. However, I got all the 10 knives done. Notice knives left has become 0, right? Now why is that really happening? The reason this is happening is because what we are doing in this code is that till knives left is not 0, which means until this condition comes true, we are always in this loop, which means that we are waiting for the mouse to go down. The moment mouse goes down, I create a clone of myself, right? Now, but what happens is that if I, let's say, hold the mouse down forever, then suddenly all the clones get created, right? So suddenly I got 10 clones. It's like a, it's like four, like a bullet shot, right? So they all got created and they all got, let's say, thrown upwards, right? But I do not want that. So I could argue that, okay, look, I have to be very careful and say I'll make sure that I make a very, very narrow click, right? Because every click is getting registered as multiple clicks, though we think we are making only one click, right? So, but that's also not practical. So if I, let's say, if I hold the mouse down, then I'm again creating lots of knives, right? So one might think, okay, I can put a small weight here, right? So I can say, okay, look, I'll put a little bit of a weight here, probably, let's say 0.1 second. So this will help me in a way that when I click once, yes, I get only one. But the issue now is that if I, let's say, keep holding them down, then these this knives get created like one after the other, right? So let's say here, right, they just get created after one after the other like earlier, right? So instead, I want to give more control to my user, and what I'll do is a very interesting trick which is used in several contexts. I'll just say wait until not mouse clicked, right? So basically say wait until not mouse clicked, and then you create a clone of. So we have a very interesting code here. First we wait until the mouse is clicked, thereafter we wait for the mouse to be not clicked. Right now with that, what happens is, let's say I hold the mouse down. Notice I'm holding the mouse down but nothing is going on. The moment I release, one clone gets created, right? So that gives me more control on what's going on here, and it's a pretty nice code to think about. So wait until mouse down, then wait until not mouse down, right? Now with this done, we see that our the knife is getting created quite nicely, and it's getting embedded to the log as we had expected, right? Now remember, when we move from one level to another, right? So when we move from one level to another, we must remove all these existing clones, right? So really there are two things to be done right now with respect to moving of levels. We must first of all remove all these existing clones, and then we should have a situation where we basically move to the next level, and this whole process should start once again, right? So let's tackle them in the same order. First thing first, I want to remove all the existing clones, right? So when I receive, for example, new throwing knives, we can take the same approach as we had done for the fixed knife, and I'll to basically remove all the clones, right? So I'll say create one more broadcast here. So I'll say, when I receive new throwing knives, actually I'll use broadcast and wait on this, because I just want to make sure that entire thing is over before any of this starts. So I'll say broadcast, let's say new message, I'll just say remove old throwing knives and wait, right? So this is broadcast and wait, so that this process will get completed before I move on, right? So I will say when I receive remove old throwing knives, then delete this clone. Right now this delete this clone is cloning, is a message that's going to every clone, which is why all the clones will get deleted, right? So the moment this happens, the moment I get new throwing knives, which remember happens when the level changes, so the moment the level changes, I will have this message given out, remove old throwing knives, just like I removed old fixed knives, and all these 10 will get deleted, right? So of course we'll not see it the first time around, but we will start seeing it a little bit later, right? So right now nothing will happen. Now we have to though we have given the facility, right? Now we just have to make sure that once I am done with the knives that I had in my bag, in this case 10 knives, then I can go to the next level, right? So the way I will do that is I'll just extend this code, this broadcasting code, and I'll say, okay, look, when I basically, let's say, once this loop is over, I know the knives are completed. So I will just give a small little wait here, just for the, just to create a little bit of a, let's say, stability in this game, right? I'll say a wait of half second, and now I want to play a sound nicely. So I will play a sound, let's say called, I just like the sound, let's say, connect, right? So connect kind of gives a happy feeling, right? So I'll say play connect until done. The reason I use play sound until done is because I really want to complete this whole thing before the next level starts, right? So it's a small sound, it doesn't really matter. So I'll just say play sound until done. And now I'll do something very interesting, which is that I will change level by 1, right? Remember, if I do not change the level, then I'm again going to get the same number of knives, because my fixed knives are created by what level I am in, right? So I'll say change, there you go. So this repeat level, right? So I'll say change, let's say level by 1, right? And with this, I am set. I can issue the 2 broadcasts that I was giving earlier. So I'll go here and in the events, I'll go and say broadcast new fixed knives and broadcast new sorry, broadcast new throwing knives, which is saying like, look, now you're going to the new level and you can go ahead and issue the broadcast here, right? So level has been increased. This increasing of level before the broadcast is very important, because remember, in the new fixed knives, I use level to create, the number of clones, right? That's how I ensure that the higher number of clones come in, right? Okay, so now let's see if I play this game. 9, 10, I've shown 10, I get this sound, I go to the next level, this time I get 2 clones, right? Now again, I threw 10 more, this time I got 3 clones, 3 fixed knives, right? In fact, the game is shaping up quite nicely, looking good, right? So we can keep on drawing, keep on playing this right now, because there's no condition for this to stop, right? So if let's say I throw 10 more, this time I'll go to 5, I've got 5 knives up there, right? So with this, the game is starting to flow. However, I need to now build the conditions for it to end, right? Now, the way it will end is that I will give myself a bunch of lives. So for example, I can give myself, say, 3 lives. So I'll say when the flag is clicked, right? Let's say I'll use a variable here. So I'll use a variable to, let's say lives. Okay. So I'll say set lives to, say, 3, right? Set lives to 3. And thereafter, I can use a code that I'm quite familiar with, which is that I'll say wait until lives become less than 1, right? Now, the reason I do less than 1 is because I can indeed lose 2 lives. Let's say I do lose 2 lives very quickly. So I'll just say, to be sure, I'll just say wait until lives is less than 1, which means it's time to stop the game. And thereafter, I'll just say stop all, right? So I'll stop all, and I will basically, right? So of course, right now I'm still not given the code for so lives will always remaining 3, but now we'll give the code for what happens, how do I get these lives to reduce, right? But the moment lives become less than 1, the game will now get over, right? Now let's think about how can I penalize myself, how can I deduct a life, right? So really there are 2 conditions, right? The conditions are that the throwing knife goes and touches a fixed knife, that's number 1. Number 2, the throwing knife goes and touches itself, right? So what I can do is that I can create another loop here. When I start as a clone, of course I can link it with the other one as well, but it's just nice to separate these logically. So this is a different functionality. So I'll say when I start as a clone, forever, let's say the first condition is quite easy to code. So I'll say forever if touching, so I'll say if touching, let's say the fixed knife, then I can change lives by -1, because that's a penalty condition, so I shouldn't be doing that. So I'll say change lives by, it must be -1, so that I reduce a life. I can actually play a small sound here as well. So let's say I'll say play, or say I'll use a sound called pluck in this case. Let's say I'll say choose a sound called pluck. I mean, again, this is just my choice, right? So I'll choose a sound called pluck, and I'll say start sound. Now this is an event sound, so I'll say start sound pluck, and then I will say delete this clone, because remember, I want to delete this particular clone, whatever has gone and hit the fixed knife, right? Now notice that this, oh sorry, not stop all, there should be delete this clone, right? So this delete this clone is, the effect is going to be quite different from, say, whenever we had this under the broadcast, which is this. When it's under the broadcast, all the clones are going to receive that, which means all will get deleted, whereas this particular thing, only the particular clone which is touching the fixed knife will get deleted, right? So now if you see, if I play this game, right, so it's all fine. However, if I go and hit, let's say I hit a fixed knife, I didn't see it, but again the clone got deleted, right? So it just happens quite fast. The clone got deleted because I went and hit that fixed knife, right? Now this is condition 1. Now I want to also make sure that if I hit another throwing knife, I should also get deleted, right? But how do I do that? Because there's no way for me to figure out if I'm touching myself, right? I mean, the touching the same sprite. But remember, I do have a way to figure out if I'm touching a certain color, right? So what I can do is that I can use a condition. Let's say I can say I'll use 2 conditions here. So or condition here. So I'll say if touching fixed knife or touching, let's say I'll go here, or let's say touching color, right? Or touching color using the dropper tool, I will go and use this color tool, right? So if I'm touching this color, it means that I am touching a throwing knife, right? Now if I did this, it looks correct, but actually it's wrong. We'll see this. You will find that not a single clone will get created. In fact, I'll just lose 3 lives. having done nothing, right? Now, why is this happening? Because remember, in this game, we are making the original sprite visible here, right? Which means the original sprite is always sitting here, right? And when I create a clone, the moment I create a clone, this condition comes true because the clone also goes to the same point, right? So clone comes here, this condition comes true, and immediately you get deleted, right? So I need to add a little bit more intelligence in this. And that intelligence really is that I should be checking for this condition only when I'm near the log, which means if I'm touching the log and I'm touching this gray color, then I should I should delete this clone, right? So how I do that is that I'll go and put this in an and condition. So I'll say if touching, let's say color this, and I want to say if touching log, right? So if I'm touching the log and I'm touching this color, which means I'm far away from this, that's when this condition, oh sorry, this is my mistake. It should be log here, right? And I put this here, right? Now this is the reason I said that when I first place this knife, it should be down enough so that when these knives are rotating, this guy is not touching the fixed knife, right? That's why we have to be a little bit careful here, right? Now when I do this, what happens is that it gets thrown. So it's all looking fine. However, if I go and deliberately touch, let's say a throwing knife or a fixed knife, then I lose life. Right? This time I touch a throwing knife, sorry, a fixed knife. I lost 3 of them and the game gets over, right? So I can put this here and I can put this here, and with this, in fact, my game is done. It's quite an interesting game. I think if you understand the logic, if you understand the flow of this, it will be very interesting because this is a game where we are creating clones and deleting them as the game goes on, right? So that part is very interesting. And then, of course, we played with the costume to get the effects that we wanted, right? And all this logic that we have put. I hope you found this useful. I hope you find this interesting. Take care. Enjoy programming. Enjoy Scratch. See you around. Bye bye.